I wanted to start right at where we are at this particular point. I mean, you literally, your life and your career has not stopped, has it, since you picked up a guitar age 7 in boarding school. And it's been a big, big month for you because first up, the reason we're here, talk about the re-release of the score from DOA, the movie. And I get a lot of emails from PRs and whatever, and, you know, you scan through things, but the reason that stuck out was because I'd seen the film, and I remember the film well, and I remember sitting down and thoroughly enjoying this fabulously different film with Dexter. So DOA, why the reimagining?
So DOA reimagining was because having done the score in 1989, I think it was around about that time, for the movie, my sister directed it, Annabelle Jankel, my sister, and she asked me to do the score, which I did. I did it in LA at Ocean Way Studios. With the main theme was recorded with orchestral players, about 19 string players, cellos and basses and violins, and I did at times add guitar to the score. The film came out on Touchstone, a division of Disney, and for a while the score was available on Varese Sarabande, the CD label Varese Sarabande. After about a year, they went bust, or it was no longer available. So for 25 years, the music from DOA was not available anywhere. So recently, Elaine, who, like yourself, my wife, Elaine, she'd seen the film when it came out before she'd met me, and she enjoyed the score. And then she asked me a year or so ago, you said, how come I can't hear it anywhere? I'd love that score and your main thing should be on the radio. She said, I listened to Classic FM and Jonathan Ross's film soundtrack show. She said it would sound fantastic up there. So what we did was we compiled the score, the original recordings, but kind of sculpted them into a kind of a radio friendly shape, edited down to the main theme was edited down to 4 minutes something, and then 25 years after I'd written the score, I thought, you know what, I'd like to write a piano sonata that encompasses the main themes, which I did. So that is an addition to everything else that's on the album. Whatever else is on the album is the original recording. But as I say, now it's available up online, which it hasn't been for 25 years.
Did you meet Dennis Quaid or Meg Ryan?
I did meet Dennis Quaid.
Did you?
Actually, I did. He did come over to the house where my sister was staying, and I remember one time he came over and he sat at the piano and banged out some kind of bluesy boogie woogie sort of stuff, and then he left. And that was my one time I met him. Yeah, never met Meg. I never met Meg.
Oh, that is a shame. But it
is a shame.
It's incredible at that time as well, because it was the video shop explosion, wasn't it, over in the States and over here. And Touchstone used to put out some great movies. I remember Ruthless People with Danny DeVito Bette Midler was another one. But where did the interest for you come for putting together movie scores? I mean, I remember seeing an interview with you on the Dick Clark bandstand.
Oh my God.
Right, when he called you a musical architect.
No, I called myself a musical architect.
Oh, you did you?
I did. I think he said, how would you describe yourself?
That's right.
And I had this image of this musical architect. So I just chucked it in there as a description.
But you were talking about a love of movie scores then.
Yeah. Okay. In a way, I had three things I really loved musically in my life. Obviously, so growing up in England, I loved the time I did. I'm 72 now. So, like in my teenage years, early teenage years, massively into the Beatles. at about age 14 or 15, a cousin of mine played me Lee Dorsey, and I was particularly struck with the B-side of of Working Down a Coal Mine, which was Get Out My Life Woman. And it had this lovely little funky beat going on. I thought, that's brilliant. So then I started looking towards Afro-American music. So that became a massive influence, and it kind of reached a head when I heard these terms I'm using. I don't usually say things like that. But I heard Sly and the Family Stone when I was about 18 or 19, and the grooves and the fact that it was kind of rhythm-based as opposed to, it came from the bottom up, if you know what I mean. Top down. And just like a lot of African music is, and it's from the rhythm, and then they put a melody on top of that. It's very earthy, and I love that. So I would say that influence. I would also say Brazilian music, which I really enjoyed, particularly singer-songwriters. And then also I would say classical romantic music. That really appealed to me. Not da-da-da-da, da-da-da, none of that emphatic kind of, or diddle-ling-wing, diddle-diddle-ling. I didn't like those things because the Kings couldn't dance anyway, could they? And Kings and Queens. They didn't have much funk in them. So I never really liked the dance pieces, but say the middle piece of an adagio, or in a symphony, they used to, they'd melt your heart, and it was that that I really loved. So it was those sort of different elements, musical elements that practically have been with me all my life, really. So I'm pretty open to, and I think so that love of classical romanticism is so suited to film scoring that I suppose it was a natural place for me to go.
I have to mention yours, as you mentioned Annabelle. This is a real artistic household you must have come from. You and your sister, who's a highly accomplished and very well respected director who did a lot of videos, music videos. She worked with Rush, I know she worked with Elvis Costello as well.
Yes,
but the big
Miles
thing,
Davis even.
well, the big thing.
Is,
if you were growing up in the 80s, when MTV came on, everything else, it was Max Headroom.
Oh yeah. Yeah, you've done your homework.
Max Headroom, absolutely fabulous. Max Headroom in the car parks. I mean,
yeah.
But your musical score, outside of DOA, you also were involved in a real cult movie at the time, and I remember seeing this as well, with a selection of fabulous actors in it. Gina Davis, Jeff Goldblum, Jim Carrey.
Oh my gosh.
Earth Girls Are Easy.
Earth Girls Are Easy. You're absolutely right, yeah. Now, you're the first broadcaster ever to bring that up, to be honest.
It was a cult classic.
Yeah.
It was just...
Jeff Goldblum, who now is, the jazz playing actor, yeah.
Fabulous actor. What did you think when you first got the call on that, and you looked at what the story was?
Earth Girls Are Easy, yeah. And I had I worked with a chap called David Storrs on that, who was I'd met in LA. He used to do a lot of trailers, and but he helped me on that score. We wrote it together. What did I think? It was just a bit zany. I mean, it's lovely just to be working. To be honest, if the story's good, then you can write a good score to it. I remember finding it very easy and enjoyable. There wasn't a lot of second guessing going along. I don't remember I don't think there was an irritating director on that. There wasn't. It was an easy movie to compose for.
The great thing about your life, being you, is the fact that you can move in between these different projects. Now, as well as DOA, which is out now, you've also just released this fabulous blues album, Mostly We Drive, with Michael Messer. Now,
yes.
There's a lot of music that gets put out that people either don't see, or it gets glossed over, or if the algorithm isn't right, it doesn't show up on your streaming feed. But I listened to it last night, and what a joy that was.
Thank you.
I mean, fabulous. So the love of blues, Michael Messer in particular, just go back to him, you've known him for decades, haven't you?
Yeah, I have known him for decades. I knew him socially in my 20s. We were through mutual friends. We didn't work together musically until lockdown. We kind of somehow called each other, I don't know, somehow we met up. And in fact, a year or so before that, we'd had a little jam. Nothing came out of it. But then during lockdown, I suddenly thought, I could see a bigger picture here, and I thought it would be really nice to maybe make an album together. So I suggested and sent him some musical shapes for him to sort of think about and see if he could work with, which he did, and he liked them. It was me just projecting myself into Michael's world of blues, but I wanted to give him something of myself, the kind of maybe that soulful instinct that I have for music. I wanted to take that to the party, to bring that to the table, and that's what I did. And a lot of the time we would just sit around talking about subject matter and what was bothering me about the world, at the moment, and he would then convert that and into lyrics, and that was how really the album emerged. It came out of that. So sometimes, just like with Ian Dury and the Blockheads, with Ian, I to start with, he would give me lyrics and I would write music to that, but once he trusted me, I would give him music, and that would initiate a lyric with him. Or he might think, oh, that might suit this lyric, he'd pull it down, and we'd work that way. And this is what happened with Michael. Sometimes he'd come to me with a lyric, I'd add the music, and often it was the other way round. But as you know, when you perform a song, it's music and lyrics simultaneously presented at the one time, and that's what you hear. And Michael's a lovely guy. He's very talented and very sure-footed when he's playing resonator guitar. He's playing blues. A lot of people have divested their interest in blues. They no longer, particularly I'd say Afro-American musicians, they don't particularly play blues any longer. But Michael does, and does it incredibly with a lot of heart. He's got a great knowledge of blues. My knowledge and my background, as I say, is more kind of soul based, and I love blues. I mean, that was the kind of guitar I was playing when I was growing up.
How long? Why did it take you so long to do a blues album, a proper blues album? I mean, you had to. I mean, there've been moments. I mean, you worked with Long John Baldry back in the day, in the early 70s. So if you look at little pockets of your career and your life, there is blues does appear, but you've never completed a full-on project like this. So why has it taken so long?
Good question. Because the right situation hadn't come up. Michael was a perfect way of expressing that. It was 3D. Actually, when I play guitar, I do play in a bluesier way than the way I play piano, which is my interests are more jazz or more classical in piano. Guitar, I tend to be more bluesy. So that fitted in very easily with Michael's style. And, when you've got somebody like Michael, who is a performing artist, it's much more attractive to me now to work with somebody who's confident on stage. I've got say 4 or 5 albums gathering dust on my shelves in my studio. I've made with people who shall remain nameless, who just didn't, and for one reason or other, didn't get up on a stage and say, I want to promote this. So the records never saw the light of day. Michael's the opposite. He loves performing live, and he's got a very faithful following. So there was, a substantial outlet for it. It was real. It was going to see the light of day, and it has done.
And I was reading an American music magazine who were loading the accolades on his playing, claiming that he was, as good a slide guitar player as the very best, and he should sit alongside Duane Allman and Ry Cooder. I mean, this is heavy praise, especially coming from the Americans.
Well, as I say, I don't think there's that many people who are still really giving it their all in blues. I mean, not in England. What can I say? I mean, Johnny Cash wrote the sleeve notes on his first album, on Michael's first album, and which is, high praise, really.
Oh, yeah.
That's what I can say is Michael's got a palette, a blues palette that he paints from, and he paints it in a very authentic manner, even though he's an English middle class lad. I mean, he does it. He embodies that world. He's got a lot of knowledge about it, and that's funny enough. Is the music I was listening when I was growing up was bands like Free, like The Who. I loved Led Zeppelin. I loved Jimi Hendrix. So all the guitar players I liked were more rock blues based. They weren't the jazzers. It wasn't jazz guitar I was listening to. Maybe with the chords I used to play, I used to like jazz, and that does creep through. But it was that blues that then went on to soul. I've always in a way enjoyed more rhythm guitar, I suppose, than lead guitar. The second line guitar has always caught my ear in a way, and so I'm quite happy to sit behind Michael, and then Michael might sit behind me. So there is a dialogue taking place when we're playing guitar.
And taking this out on the road, I've seen a few dates start to appear, but are you going to be doing more consistent touring of this project? Because it does need to be heard. It would be a shame if it just sort of got left behind.
I think it will. It won't get left behind. We have a lot of all our gigs are up on michaelmesser.com.
Right.
They're all up there, all the gigs so far for this year. Sometimes we're going out as a duo. We have gone out as a trio, and we also go as a quartet. But a lot of it depends on the budget that's available for us. It's not as expensive as taking the Blockheads out on the road. That's a 7-piece band, which is more expensive. So it's doable. I enjoyed making the album with Michael. I love the package, the visuals on it. I think it's a lovely, tight, well-presented project. We're performing all the songs, but I think bar one we're performing live. I have a great feeling about it all.
So you've got all of this and all of that stuff that we've talked about, but obviously being part of Ian Dury and the Blockheads was this, was the making of the man, maybe, and in particular, the creation of that album, New Boots and Panties. Through the decades, every time there's a poll come out, Rolling Stone do them, and then all the magazines, greatest albums ever, best 500 albums you should listen to before you die. Every time you do one of these, you'll see albums drop out, as new music comes in, but that has been a mainstay of virtually every one of them since the day it was released. I mean, is that the body of work that you are most proud of from this extraordinary career that you had over 5-6 decades?
Well, it does stand out. I mean, Ian had a lot of belief in that record when we made it. He did. He thought it was. He'd put his heart and soul into those lyrics. I mean, Ian had a very tough schooling. Being disabled, there was very little empathy for him. And disabled people at that time in the 50s, growing up. and he saw he hated the patronising that people like himself would experience. He hated the kind of hypocrisy he saw in the politics, and rather than wag his finger and be didactic, he didn't do that. He painted these quirky characters that the disenfranchised people who don't get onto, you don't hear a lot about, generally speaking, but he might paint a picture from their point of view. Billericay Dickie, who was a cheeky little chappy who, and Ian loved the humour, loved to put humour into his writing. Ian loved it, had a great sense of humour. But as I say, he was also angry about the situation that he and other people found themselves in. And he managed to put it into lyrics. He was very sensitive about not being didactic or over serious. There was a lot of skill involved in how he wrote. And what the greatest part for me was, he put a lot of trust in me. That grew, actually. It didn't start like that.
Well, no, because it's very famously quoted on many occasions what the first reaction was when he saw you backstage.
It's too well documented now. But that's it, isn't it?
But do you like the whole, when you look back, does it make you smile? You could be sat there on a Wednesday afternoon, you're not doing anything, and you just sit down with a cup of tea, and the memories start to come back, and you think of it, it's almost this very quaint place that we used to live. How you became involved in the first place, going in to buy a piano in a music shop, leaving a card with the owner in the hope that somebody may call. And they did. And that story is so of that time. I've spoken in the last 6 months to Andy Fairweather-Low, who was interviewed for a job in a music shop before he got his break by Dave Edmunds. Chris Slade, the drummer from Wales, who went on to work with AC/DC, who got a job age 15 and then got a gig with Tom Jones's original band when he found out. This was all from being in the music shop. Do you get misty-eyed about this time?
As I get older, I realise that you might as well enjoy your past, because the book might be closing at some point. Time does seem to be more precious these days. I don't think a minute's getting shorter, but one's perception of a minute is getting shorter. I don't have the physical energy. For example, if I met another bloke like Ian Dury, which I won't, and he was to say F off to me the moment I met him, I'd probably say, well, good luck to you, I'll see you later, or words to that effect. I don't think I would take it on board, because I can't. When I was in my late 20s, when I met Ian, I had the energy, and I did, to go forward with this with the project, and I had it physical and the energy to do that. I don't think I have the same desire. I wouldn't do it now. Is what I'm trying to say. I don't think I'd do it now. As I say, do I get misty-eyed? I'm very grateful for it. Very grateful.
Do you enjoy talking about it? I mean, I know now, if you look at interviews that you do, and I've looked at a few over the past few, regardless of what the product of the moment is or whatever, the first thing that people do, right, let's talk about Hit Me With Your Rhythm. Or let's talk Reasons to Be Cheerful. What was all that about? I mean, have you become more accommodating now to people that want to focus on talking about that, or does it irritate you? It's like, Christ, I did other things as well.
Yeah, it never gets irritating. I never get irritated by it. I am very grateful. At the time, you're living in real time, so you can't really get a perspective on it. For any writer or any painter or anybody, when you get recognition for something, it's kind of, it validates what you've done. That's all I can say. It validates it. And
I've got so much work that isn't validated by the public. It sits on my computer, or there's some jazz piano compositions I might have written. They don't get those same accolades. So when you do get something, you go, thank the Lord for that, because as I say, you can buy butter as opposed to margarine. It's a nice you feel better.
Yeah, no.
You eat better.
The album itself, before it came out, I mean, it was that period of punk explosion, and you ended up getting it out on Stiff Records, who had other fabulous acts. Do you remember the tours, those package tours that they used to do? Stiff tours, or the Stiffs tour?
The Stiffs' Greatest Stiffs.
Yeah. What was the camaraderie like? I mean, I'm thinking about Elvis Costello, The Damned, Lena Lovitch.
Nick Lowe was very friendly. I remember that. Elvis was a bit distant. I don't know why. He just sat at the back of the coach, and Dave Edmunds was cordial. Let's put it like that. He didn't stretch himself. But Nick Lowe was the man who was the friendliest, I would say, out of all of them. He had time for us youngsters, so to speak. It was good fun. It was a bit of a laugh, a bit of a riot, going up and down the country in a coach. It was good. It was great. I remember for a while, not Nick Lowe, Elvis wanted to be on top spot, i.e. he wanted to be on was it 10? No, he wanted the main slot of the evening. He wanted to be like Top Dog, the kind of main act. But if we went on before him, as Ian and the Blockheads, we'd rinse the audience. There was nothing left. Absolutely nothing left. The audience were kind of like, soaked. So he said, no, I can't do that. I'll go on before you. And so it was pretty obvious at that point. He wrote great songs and so forth. But as from a live point of view, Ian was taking no prisoners. We were going to rock the crowd. We'll go from, sort of gentle, funky tunes into outright punk extravaganzas, So there was a kind of friendly rivalry. Well, I don't know if it was even friendly. There was rivalry going on.
Yeah.
But it was good. It was a good laugh, actually.
And to get on to Top of the Pops, I mean, was this back then? Thursday evening, 7:00 or 7:30. I can't remember what time it was. But this was still a big thing, even though everybody. I remember growing up, and if anybody liked the band that did singles, then you were like considered to be very uncool. But to get on there in front of a national audience of 10, 15 million. Massive thing.
Yeah. Everybody watched it, didn't they? Yeah.
And you bought new Moss Bros suits?
I think we rented them.
Did you?
I think we hired them probably. Absolutely. But that was just one evening. That was the acceptable. Was it acceptable? Well, David Bowie did it. Or loads of
everybody did it. Everybody did it. Motorhead did it.
Led Zeppelin never did it, did they?
Well, they never did a single, though, did they?
No, they didn't. That's true. Well, listen. Let me just bring in, as you mentioned that, Ian, when we made New Boots and Panties, Sex and Drugs and Rock and Roll, our single, which had come out before that, wasn't on the album. But
that's right, on the original pressing it wasn't,
on the original pressing, but Barclay Records in France, who were distributing in France, they'd put it on it, Sex and Drugs and Rock and Roll, because Ian had always said, I don't want singles at the albums. People have paid for them once. Why should they have to pay for it twice? They paid for this, it was fair reasoning. But when the French import started outselling the English pressing, Stiff Records said, look, we're putting the single on. And because Ian always thought the singles, as well as they had a certain energy to them, which made them singles. They're a bit more sort of window, like they caught your attention quickly. An album track didn't have to have that same sort of energy. and so that's why he didn't want the singles on.
How did the fact it got banned by the BBC? Were people more after hearing it and going out and buying it because the BBC had banned it?
I think so. I think Ian's always been, seen as this edgy character. The amount of people who've come up to me and said, Chaz, like at gigs, they've come up to me after a gig, fans and so on, said, Chaz, a turning point in my life was when I bought new Boots and Panties, and I rushed upstairs and put it on the record player, and I'm sitting there listening to it, and I hear, "Arseholes, bastards, fucking cunt pricks." And my dad, rushed up, or my mum, and they said, "Give me that record," and they take it away, and they can all remember that moment. It was a turning point. And
this was part of it as a kid, because I remember getting a Sham 69 album, and it had, it just had words emblazoned over the front cover, like, the pill, just done for no other reason. To wind adults up, I think. But you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
I wasn't allowed to have that album.
Well, there
because
you go.
Because of how times have changed, isn't it? For you, because of the word panties, we were definitely not having that.
Really?
No, there was a no go. There was no go. You thought it was something to do with porn. But when I did get it, do you know what the biggest disappointment was? Because it was about 18 months after. I always thought, where's Rhythm Stick? It's not on here. Yeah.
Oh, bloody hell! You spent all that money, and where's the single? But yeah. Well, mind you, Rhythm Stick came out quite a lot later.
It was about 16, 18 months afterwards.
Must have been. Yeah. Well, there you go. Well, the reasoning would have been, even on Do It Yourself, which was the album after that, DIY. Ian didn't want his singles on the albums for the reasons I've just pointed out.
Last thing I'll say was the album covers, the great album covers of the time. Ackford's Underwear, a lingerie store. The company still exists today. They moved I think it was the son and the daughter of the son and his wife actually moved because everything went online, and they sold the shop, and they still have a factory apparently, and they still produce garments. So it's still there. That, and then Barney Bubbles
good old Barney, yeah.
Oh, what a great guy! Did a lot of work with Hawkwind, producing incredible stuff.
Right.
But how many versions of that album did he do for you?
Sorry, say that again.
How many versions of the second album were there? Covers, 20 odd.
Oh, more. 39, I think, apparently. Phil Dupas has got all but one, apparently. He's still searching for that one missing item. Barney Bubbles, what a one-off he was, and he actually designed my second album cover, Chazanova, which didn't, unfortunately, go into his coffee table book of his artwork, his book covers and his designs, Branston Pickle and things like that, and the Blockheads logo, which, he was phenomenal, yeah.
So lastly then, what is left for you to do and achieve? Have you got something, a project that you have had on the back burner and think, right, it's not over until I do this. This is what I want to achieve next.
Yeah, Tim, thank you for asking. So in a way it follows on from DOA, which is up and available, my film soundtrack. It's on Spotify and loads of other places, and my website, chazjankel.com. Following on from that, and probably I'll put it out later this year, is an album I've made with a cellist called Frank Schaefer. He's a freelance professional musician who's worked on over 600 movies, including the Bond movies and other huge,
wow.
He's serious business. And so I've made an instrumental album, which I'd love to talk to you about later on.
No, sure, when you do it.
It's called Notes of Bergamot, which is a whole other story in itself, but which is the title of one of the pieces. So that is something also which I think I could play live. I love keeping things easy for myself. Like because obviously a 19-piece orchestra, those you can't travel around with that. That's what I had on DOA. And I love music which is tactile, like and I think just a cellist and myself and maybe an acoustic bass player, that would be great. That'd be fine. And then in a way it follows on from DOA, and I can actually imagine with Frank Schaefer, who's the cellist, performing DOA, the theme from DOA, as part of the set. That'd be lovely. So, but having said that, I've got another little project with a guy called Finn Peters. That's coming out. He's a jazz sax player and flautist. I've done 3 tunes with him. What I do is I put things up on my record label called CJ Records, but it's distributed through Kudos Distribution, right. Kudos. And that's how I do things these days. That's how I do it. And then if I believe in a project, I'll pay for some PR. And that just gets it out to the bigger, wider world. That's where I am with the sort of technology of today. Recently, I just bought myself a 1990s Plaistow piano, which apparently Chopin helped design one of the earlier models. It's a very popular French piano. It's like the equivalent of Steinway in France. Spotted this piano in Oxford recently. Thought I was going in for a Yamaha upright. Came out with a Plaistow upright piano. That gives me a lot of joy. Just to sit down and play. I love doing that. And so who knows? I've got a few sort of funky ideas which I'm collecting on my little phone. These are the best things in the world, phones, because it's your sketchbook. These are sketchbooks now, and some of those sketches might end up as paintings. You never know. I mean, music in a musical sense.